Hello, everybody. Thanks for attending. I'm going to, before I get on my iPhone, I'm going to be talking just a little bit in generalities about Onshape. It's different than anything that you have been exposed to in the past. It's first of all cloud-based, which is one thing, but there's a lot of different aspects to Onshape. There's the ability to create geometry and drawings and things like that. That's the CAD aspect of it. When you create that information, you need to be able to manage that information, be able to distribute it, release it, things like that, different versions. That has to do with the data management aspect of it. If we're moving data around through our company internally, we need workflows. So there's workflow built in to Onshape to handle things like that. And basically what we're going to be talking about today is the mobile aspect of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that makes it unique as well. When we are designing or developing a product in Onshape, we can branch off different ideas and review those. If we do like those modifications or differences that we've created, we can always merge that back in to the main design. It really makes Onshape a unique tool. You can also conduct design reviews. These could be various ideas, and we could take a look at them one at a time to see which is the best direction to go moving forward. So a lot of built-in capabilities on Onshape that is just different than your typical product development system. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is bringing people in. There's a whole administration portion to this, as well as who's using Onshape, what rights do they have, things like that. So if we are in a company where we have multiple users, typically to set a user up, and this is the way it's always been, is that we go and buy some hardware, or get some hardware from somebody who has left the company, put on the licensing, the new software, all our internal types of software that we need, get it into the network. There's all kinds of things that we need to do from an IT standpoint to do these types of things, to get somebody up and running and working with everybody else in our company. Onshape, it's a lot different. We could basically just need the person's email address, and they're automatically part of Onshape and able to take part in all the aspects of Onshape, whether it be design reviews, release management, any of those aspects. A person on their phone can do that. And then eventually, we will need to incorporate them into the rest of the company, so we can send them that laptop that they need, or whatever other aspects they might. But right off the bat, very first day, if we haven't even procured all of this, they got a phone, they can be working with us in Onshape. So with that, let's take a look at Onshape. I've logged in here. This is my home page that I get to, and what we see here across the top are different products that I've been working on recently. The folders that we see down below are either folders that I have created to organize data, or folders that other people have shared with me to give me information or give me other types of data that I can leverage. One of the things also across the top here is an app store. So there's additional capabilities that we can add to Onshape. Things like finite element analysis, manufacturing toolpaths, realistic rendering, things like that. There's the Learning Center. This is great. This is how you learn Onshape. There's hundreds of different online webinars, tips and techniques, and also training that you can take. And this is what I use to learn Onshape. Going through the different exercises there. So that's available to everybody as well. One thing I wanted to touch on just briefly too before we get going. So in respect to working with a company, we can see the different users that we have here in my company. They can be organized, right? So from an administration standpoint, this is very easy to work with. All you need is a web browser, and we can create different groups of people, put people in different groups, give them different rights and capabilities. I mentioned before that there's workflow capabilities in here. So here's the workflow built in for release management. There's also a automatic part numbering system that we can create with a prefix, number of characters, things like that, so that when we do release parts, assemblies, drawings, or files, they will have a unique part number. And that can kind of help benefit us in moving forward and getting information through the process in our company. So let's go back to where I was, my homepage, and let's start working on a design. So I'm going to come over here. This is a kind of a hand food processor, at least the start of one, right? And to kind of give you a little idea of, I've kind of picked it up kind of in the middle of the process here of developing this. But if I take a look at where I initially started, what I'm in is something called a part studio. And a part studio allows me to put in a lot of information that I'm going to need to help develop a particular product. So not only will, the parts be here and the assemblies and the drawings and things like that, but other information. So I actually got this from part of that other information. I just brought in a 2D image and I started to sketch over the top of it. And you can see the sketching entities I have here. And I just took those and I revolved those out into this particular series of bodies that you see here. So this is a multi-body modeler. What that means is that I'm in kind of a single part studio, but these are technically 3 separate parts. I can make drawings of each one of these. I can use them in other assemblies. So it's very easy for me to create different parts, and I don't have to extract them or do anything unnatural to them to make them usable by anybody else. One of the things I mentioned too is that I'm in a part studio. So the part studio has, my assemblies here, my drawings. It also has a folder that I put in here, which have different images that we can see here. I also have a requirements document, a Word doc here. I could have some maybe test results. Anything that benefits and helps me better produce this product are things that I can put in my part studio. So now that we have that, and I have these 3 different bodies here, the base body, the top, and then the middle part. And this is all typical CAD stuff, right? So I haven't done anything that's really unique to any other CAD system, other than the fact that I've done this all in the cloud. But one of the things I'm going to do is start to do some things that kind of set Onshape a little bit different than most other systems. So I've got a start on here, but I want to start bringing in some other people to help me with this. So instead of sending them a copy of the file or doing something like that, I'm just going to send them an invite. I'm going to make a comment here. I can share the model with them. There's a big bright blue button here that I can share it with anybody that I want. Right now, nobody knows about these, what I've created here, right? So I have this part, I have an assembly, and I also have a drawing for this as well. And so you notice that the part studio, the multi-body, is real similar to the assembly. The unique thing with the assembly is now I can start adding other parts to this. So you can see over here in the tree, we have individual components. We also have a bill of material here. And then again, we can kind of coordinate with that, maybe kind of move this over to the left a little bit, what state they're in, quantity. And again, we have a variety of other different types of columns to pull out information. This is either pulling information from the part, or if I type it in, it's pushing information into the parts that are here. So that's a little difference between an assembly and just the regular part studios. Assemblies, we can bring in additional parts, and basically that's what I'm going to use when I create my drawing. But let's go back to the part studio here for a second. Like I said, I want to share this with somebody, so I'm going to actually make a comment out here. So there's built-in capability to comment back and forth with people in the Onshape environment. So what I'm going to do is pick on someone in our company, that list of people that we saw before. So I'm going to use Nick. I'm just going to say, I need help with the top. And I'm going to assign that to him. So this is also part of kind of the workflow. We can actually assign tasks to people that they need to fulfill in order to, progress our design. And making it more a little official than just asking them if you'll help. So I'm going to assign that to Nick. And it says, okay, you're going to share this. So up until now, no one else has known about this. I'm going to say, okay, let's do that. I'm going to move my window over here a little bit. So Nick is outside the company right now. And one of the things that I'm going to do, here he is on the iPhone here, is he just got a message. And it says, Bill has assigned a task to you. And so what he can do is say, all right, let's select that. So he picks on it, and that brings him right into my part. Now, it's not a copy of the part, it is the exact same part. And so one of the things that we could do is I could come in and say, well, I want to kind of make a couple of changes here initially to show Nick what we're doing. So I'm going to kind of hide a couple of these parts. And you notice that you see it exact same thing happen here. And the thing is that we're working on the same part all the time. If I go in and say, I want to maybe shell this out. By doing that, we also see that over on Nick's side. So Nick can see this. I'm just taking my finger right here, kind of spinning it around. If I move my fingers apart, it zooms in, move them together, zooms out. So Nick sees exactly what I'm doing. In fact, he can go into what's kind of called a follow mode. And now he's following me. So as I spin things around, you'll notice in real time, he's seeing that here. And you notice in his window, we have a little finger pointing at things. So what I'm going to do is turn on the top, kind of turn off the bottom. And this is really what I want him to do. I need you to kind of work on this bottom area right here. So now he understands that. And again, I can be texting back and forth with him. But what I'm going to do here is, and Nick can, isn't stuck with my following around. He can independently rotate things around. But there's sort of a nice communication tool to be able to kind of slave your screen to somebody else's to see exactly what they want to have done. So one of the things that we're doing here is there's a history of everything that has been created so far. And that history is right here in this little history tree. So we can see all the different commands that I've done so far to create the product up until now. What I'm going to do is create a version, a moment in time. And so this is a dynamic document. It's sort of like a Word document. You can always go in and add more information into it. And this particular point, at this version, I'm going to call this like top develop. And we'll create that version in time. So at this particular point, and we can see who created it and what time, there's a version. So we can go back to this at any point and say, okay, we want to do some development from this point on, or before it, or after it. Anything in this history, I can always go in and make that my current, latest point that I'm at. So everything is captured, nothing is ever lost, and you can go back to any point at any time that you want. So with this, one of the things, I'm going to let Nick work on this, but I don't know exactly what he's going to do to the top, and I don't know if I'm going to like it. So I'm going to go over here, selecting on this, and I'm going to say, let's make a branch. And I'm going to call it like Nick's idea. So now I've created this branch. You notice how it's come off from the main history of our part. And this is what I want him to work on. So I could come over here and just say, let's look at it being here. I'll put a comment in and say, work on the branch. I'll send that to him. And so he gets that information as well, looking at comments over here. And you can see everything is there. So let's go back to Nick. One of the things that he needs to do is right now, you notice his menus are different than mine. He has these menus across the bottom here. That's viewing menus, right? So he can do section cuts, he can measure things, he can add comments like he has been. But he needs to do edit capability. So he can send me a text or he can call me, right? Because he's on his phone. But the thing is that we can go in and change the rights that he has. So I'm going to go here. Here's Nick. He can view things right now. I'm just going to go in and edit that. I'll say instead of viewing, let's say that he can edit things as well. I don't want him to make a copy of this, and I don't want him to export it. You can make comments, you can make changes, but that's all I want you to do. So it's sort of a whitelist approach. I say to the system who can access things, and when they can access, what can they do? So I don't have to worry about things wandering off, as long as I trust the person I'm sending this to. So I'm going to say, let's update that to Nick. So all Nick has to do is, let's see, let's go back to this, call up our chapter here. Nick comes in, you notice his menus have changed now. Down in the bottom, all that viewing capability stuff went away, and now he has access to things up here. Now, remember I told him that he has to work on the branch. So he's going to go over to the branch, select on Nick's idea, and open that up. And so now he's working on the branch and going to make some modifications to that. The thing is that he has all the capabilities. I hit this little button right here. So I hit this little top button with my finger, These are all the commands that we see across the top here. This is a mobile CAD system. He has all the capabilities that I do. So he's gonna come over here and say, let's maybe do a shelling operation. And he's just gonna pick this bottom face to remove. So now he's shelled that out. Now, if we look at mine, it's still solid, right? Because he's working on a branch. So he can do whatever he wants and make the modifications that he wants. And later on, we'll come and revisit that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of keep working on this part. So as I develop this, I'm gonna turn on the base and the middle part here. One of the things I'm gonna do with this middle part, let's go and maybe kind of make it transparent. So I'm just gonna select on this and make it a little bit more transparent like that. And then if we look at the assembly, we'll go into the assembly. Here's our parts, right? Our 3 parts that we've created. In the development of this, I'm gonna say, let's add in another part, right? So let's say I created another part on my own. This is sort of like a little cup that's gonna also be used in our chopper. But now I wanna start adding some things to this assembly. So I'm gonna say, let's insert. And we'll insert maybe another assembly outside of this part studio that I'm in. I'll kind of look through here, see a variety of different parts that I have. I'm gonna come and grab this one. There's a blade with a handle. You notice this little triangle next to it? This is a released part. So that's just letting me know that this particular part is already released in our company. It's good to go. I'm gonna say, let's take that and we'll place it over here. So now we have this placed, and what I wanna do is start assembling this. So here are all the constraints that we have to assemble components. It uses something called mates, but basically you can put 2 parts together just with 2 clicks. There's different types of constraints. So we have just a regular fixed constraint. We can have cylindrical, we can have planar. In this case, I'm gonna use a cylindrical joint. And I'm gonna say, let's kind of pick a mate in the middle of this face and on the top of this one. So at this point, I have our parts assembled, and it can kind of move infinitely. You notice it's spinning around and it's moving up and down. You know, I want to kind of control this a little bit more. So I'm going to go under limits, and I'm going to say, I don't really want it to move up any farther. I certainly don't want it to rotate when it's going down, but when it does go down, let's go down maybe 1.5 inches. So now that I have that set, if I select on this again, now it only goes down, right? So here's our hand chopper and the way that it would work. An interesting thing is, as we build up our assembly and it gets more and more complex, one of the things that we can do is, how is this put together? I can just put my mouse over this cylindrical joint. It tells me exactly, it highlights the parts for me, and it tells me the different limits that are set on this part. So it's really easy for me to kind of take a look at an assembly, especially if it has some kind of a motion associated with it like this. We can see exactly which parts and how they were put together. Really easy if you're getting somebody else's work and you need to kind of work with it. So now that I have my assembly set here, I'm going to go over and take a look at our drawing. So come over to our drawing. One of the things, so I've added some parts to this. I added the cup. We haven't really done anything with Nick's work yet, but we can see kind of the updates here. There's a little yellow button, so it's basically telling me that what we're seeing here is out of date with what exists. So I just select this to kind of update things. You'll notice it automatically added those other 2 parts to the bill of material down here. And now it's brought in our parts that we see here. One of the things I'm going to do is say, let's maybe make a section view. Maybe put one right here. So now we can see kind of a cross-sectional view of our part. We also have, certainly capabilities to go in here and create dimensions and things like that. Notes, geometric tolerances, all kinds of things. So I'm going to put on our dimension over here. We could say, let's make it symmetrical plus or minus 50 thousandths. So, and I can continue, developing our design here. At this point, Nick gets back to me. He can send me a comment, or like I said, he's on his phone. He can give me a call since he's not in the office. And basically, he's saying that, the part that I've been working on over here is good to go. Take a look at it. So I'm going to go over to the history over here and take a look at what Nick's work looks like. So I'll call this up, take a look at it. Yeah, It's all shelled out. This would be a good plastic part that we can make use of. So what I'm going to do is incorporate that with the design that we have here. So as we can see down here, we still have that solid part. But I'm going to say, let's go in and merge in Nick's idea. Now it's shelled out. So now anything that he's done has now been added to our assembly here, or our part studio. If we go back to the assembly, obviously that has been updated as well. And if we go back to the drawing itself, we can update that. Again, we'll see the little yellow button up here saying update it. And what we're going to see is all this solid material go away, right, as we incorporate Nick's idea. Now, in the meantime, Nick's been busy over here. He's got something else that he wants to do. So he's going to come over and kind of go back in the history of this part a little bit. And he's going to start inserting some features. So we'll say, let's go back to this particular point. And we'll create another feature. Let's say we'll pick on something here, and we'll say, let's extrude that out. And in this case, we're going to have it actually remove material. So Nick's just going through here. We could say symmetric, both sides, give it a value. And we can see that it makes a cut here. So, oh, should have said complete that. So let's extrude that guy out again. So kind of extrude this out. And we'll say remove that. Symmetric. So all the same commands that we had here are right here on my phone, right? Or on Nick's phone, I guess I should say. We'll complete that. So now he's added this cut in here. I'm going to go back here and just say, let's go back to the end. So this incorporates everything that Nick's been doing, kind of a new design that we have here, right? You notice that it's incorporated into here. So he can send me another text or information saying, hey, I've got a new idea even more. Going back to our part studio, I can go and take another look. You notice that his branch is now taller than mine. That means some new stuff has been added. I take that as, we take a look at this. I kind of like this, right? It's a good idea. So again, I'm just going to come back in here into our main idea and say, let's take Nick's idea over here and let's merge it in again. Right? So here it's incorporated into the part studio. I'm going to go over here, take a look at our assembly. We can see that it's been incorporated there. I'm going to go to our drawing. So by making leverage of these branches, different ideas, you notice that we don't see that happen here yet. I'm just going to update this for a second. And we can see that that's final change that Nick has added is there. One of the things I'm going to do here is, we can't really see it real well in this cutaway view. We can see it here. I'm going to actually go in and say, let's make a section view of a section view. And we'll put it right over here. So this is exactly what we would think. If you make a section of a section, you get kind of a quarter of the part. But we can see exactly how this design change has been incorporated here. So now that we have this ready to go, we have a drawing, we've got the assembly, we've got a couple of changes that Nick has made using his phone. I'm just going to come over here and say, let's release this. So what it does is it grabs the drawing, it grabs all the components that we've been working with, I'm going to say automatically put part numbers. Remember, this is that automatic part numbering system we have. It automatically assigns part numbers. The release for this, we could call it ECR dash, and then we'll just kind of copy this number here. So it's really an official ECR that we could put here. And I can put in approvers. Who do I want to approve this? I can put observers. So these would be people that can't really react or interact with the release, but they're notified as things change and as they progress. At this point, I could say, I'm just going to release it, right? I'm going to say this is good. And that releases that part. So now those part numbers are assigned to each one of these components. As we update this, we can see that the part numbers have been assigned to everybody. And even up here, we can see that it's on revision A. It was done today by me. So this is sort of the world of working in Onshape. We can work from our desktop. We can work from a tablet. We can work from our phone, like Nick has been doing. I'll show you one thing I'll do here. Right? So Nick has served his usefulness as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to do is turn that off. Right? So now he has no more access to this part. If I go and try to refresh it, let's go back to this part. You notice in his Part Studio, there's nothing there. Right? He has no way of accessing it. This is absolute control over who has your information and what they can do with it. And once they're finished, you can undo that, and it's like they never had access to it before. I can always reshare it with them, but I have absolute control over my proprietary information, who gets it and what they can do with it. And that's really an important thing nowadays to keep your information secure. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Sierra and see if we have any comments or questions.
All right, thanks so much, Bill, for showing us some helpful features in Onshape. So I don't actually see any questions in the chat box, but as I mentioned earlier, feel free to visit us at onshape.eacpds.com, and we would be happy to answer any questions or even provide any more information as needed. So with that, I hope everyone has